Welcome back to AgriTalk. Today we are talking about vermiculture, and with me is Peter Kanyagia, who is a redworm farmer and a vermiculture farmer. Peter, you told us a little about the benefits of using the redworm. How do these redworm help improve our soils, or how do these products, the vermicompost and vermi liquid, help improve our soils?
Because of long continuous use of non-organic fertilizers, our soils have been depleted most of the nutrients, and they have become very poor and also acidic, which means we are growing less food now than before. When you use vermicompost in the soil, vermicompost is a soil amendment which increases the fertility of the soil. Vermicompost has all the nutrients. Actually, we need 16 nutrients, major and micronutrients, to grow plants. And the vermicompost has all these nutrients, which means when we put the vermicompost in the soil, we add fertility in the soil. Now, when we add fertility in the soil, we also, this vermicompost has usually have eggs from the earthworms. And we also introduce these earthworms in the soil. Earthworms are known to dig deep in the soil, increasing the air in the soil, aeration. Also, it makes holes inside the soil where water can pass through, which means the soil will retain more water. You find that using the vermicompost in the soil increases your fertility to a very high level.
Okay. We are currently grappling with pollution. How can vermiculture help us reduce pollution?
We have pollution rates starting from our home, where we have a lot of waste. We collect waste in the house and we put it in garbage bag and send it to the city council to be disposed somewhere where they go and pollute. If each of us had some earthworms at home, or more, we introduce earthworms at home, we can actually be able to compost some of especially the organic waste at home, use it in our small farms, use it in our garden, which means we are going a long way in reducing the pollution by those people who throw this waste somewhere and pollute the environment.
Okay.
Now, we also have a lot of waste in terms of slaughterhouse waste. We have a lot of waste which pollute rivers, like coffee waste. You find that coffee farms are located mostly near the rivers. And the coffee waste actually pollute these rivers. We have seen some coffee farms which have gone back, which have now introduced earthworms to compost this waste. Instead of the waste going to the river, they compost this waste. And from this waste, they get very good compost, which they use in their farms, and thereby reducing the pollution in the rivers.
Okay.
So there are a lot of ways, earthworms can be used to reduce pollution.
Okay. We also know flower farms produce a lot of waste. But for flower farms also, they use a lot of chemicals to bring up their flowers. Do you think the redworm can still be able to compost or produce compost from the flower farm's waste?
This is a very good question, because earthworms are very special bacteria or animals, which actually, when they eat the waste, they can remove the toxic matter from the waste, thereby cleaning that waste, removing the toxic matter, and the end product is very clean compost. And actually, there are a few flower farms which use earthworms to compost their waste. These flower waste, which have a lot of chemicals, and the end product actually is free from these chemicals
Okay.
and pesticides.
Okay. Agriculture is also a default function. Do you think either the county government or the national government is doing enough to promote such kind of technologies?
I feel that county government or even the central government has not really been involved in informing or making people aware the benefits of natural way of farming. And I feel that the government, the county government, can go a long way in trying to make vermiculture awareness, especially at the grassroots level, in school level, where such introduction can go a long way in making people aware of vermiculture.
Okay.
Otherwise, the government is not doing enough.
Okay. Talking of schools, we know universities were meant for purposely for doing research. Do you think our universities are doing enough research on such or this kind of new technologies and new farming methods like the use of vermiculture?
I would say the universities we went and the current universities which are there, there's a lot of there's a lot of training, especially in agriculture, in organic farming. And when we talk about organic farming, vermiculture is part of organic farming. And I personally have been involved in setting up vermiculture system in some universities like Ebu University. I've also mentored a lot of students from the various universities in my farm who come for to see how vermiculture works. Otherwise, I know for sure that universities, especially training people in agriculture, they are training their youth in vermiculture. Yes.
And do you think maybe people like you need a little bit of funding or anything to help him bring more people and even students and other farmers into this kind of farming?
The government has not been known to fund people who are doing research in various way of farming or new techniques, which is not very good, because an individual has a limited capacity. And if the government actually would be interested in increasing awareness on various high techniques in in agriculture like vermiculture, they can help a lot. Funding what we do, our research, funding training, funding say like agricultural institute starting vermiculture system in their farms. That can help very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Earlier on, you told me about how redworms are helping us connect with nature. Maybe you can explain that further, or how did the redworms help you connect with nature?
Earthworms are biological animals, and natural compost of any material is done biologically. And you find that earthworms naturally they exist in the forest, in the natural environment, which means that if you want now to increase composting even at home, we can introduce the earthworms in our farms. We can introduce our farms earthworms in different types of farming, where we can actually be able to compost all this waste to get good compost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm told that is all the time we have for today. Next time we'll try and see to have more time.
Hi, this is Larry up in Brandon, Minnesota. I'm going to do a series of videos, starting with this one, on vermiculture. I want to explain to you how vermiculture, vermicomposting, gardening, and earthworms are so critically tied together. Vermiculture, or commonly known as worm farming, is just a simple way of turning table scraps, compost, grains, multiple things into a rich compost called vermicompost or worm castings, which are a phenomenal amendment to gardens, container gardening, starting seeds, and multiple things. What I want to do is try to take all the mystery and confusion out of the whole thing and to explain and break it down and make it as simple as possible for you. Vermiculture is taking worms. Commonly used are red wigglers. A smaller red worm, which is a compost worm. It's not a garden worm, it's a compost worm that is found in manure piles and decomposing matter that breaks it down by eating it. There's a couple different worms that they use. They use the red wiggler, which doesn't get real big but is a very aggressive composter. There's another worm which is used by a lot of great big worm growers that serve two purposes. Not only to compost the organic matter and to make a great compost, worm castings for that market, but also a fishing bait, because they are a larger marketable worm used for the fishing industry. And I've got a little background in it because I was in the live bait business for quite a while. Also worked quite a bit with a good friend of mine who had a large commercial worm growing operation. And I have some pretty good insight in that. And it's been a lifelong interest and study of mine ever since I was a kid. I've always been fascinated by worms, read many books by Charlie Morgan, other people that have studied night crawlers, worms, and all things, because it's a fascinating, it's like Charles Darwin said, the intestines of the earth. It's God's way of really taking what is in nature, worms, and turning organic matter into some of the most phenomenal material for plants and for your garden. And this is what I want to go over. Okay, so let's start with, what do I have to do to get into vermiculture? Is it smelly? Is it something I don't want to do? Can I do it in my apartment? Do I have to do it in a large? You can do it in a small area. That's the thing beautiful about it. Whether it's a 5-gallon pail, a small tote, you can make various different kinds, and I'll get into that. But why would I want to do this? Why do I want to raise worms, earthworms, to do this? The reason is because the end result is the vermicompost, or the worm castings, which are just phenomenal. The thing is, worm castings are the most nutritional, rich fertilizer known to man. It stimulates plant growth more than any other natural product on the market. They're 99% pure, natural, and organic, making earthworm castings one of the mostly highly sought after organic fertilizers today. And as more people seek to grow organic and healthy plants in their gardens, worm castings are the original natural fertilizer put in place by the Creator since the beginning of time, discovered by man to be extremely beneficial in the plant and gardening world. As composting worms consume organic substances, they excrete tiny pellets called worm castings, also known as natural organic fertilizer. Organic gardeners rely on this natural fertilizer because it balances the soil's pH and helps retain moisture. Plants love organic fertilizer made from worm castings. Worm castings have 5 to 11 times more nitrogen, potassium, calcium, phosphorus, potash, and magnesium than topsoil, along with many other trace elements and micronutrients, such as magnesium, copper, zinc, cobalt, borax, iron, carbon, and nitrates. This fertilizer is naturally balanced. It's full of bioaccessible nutrients. Each of the nutrients have been naturally processed by the earthworm, digest the organic matter in the soil to change it into a more concentrated and easily absorbed form than naturally available in plant soil. The minerals are water soluble and time release, so they can easily be available to the plant when the plant needs them. You know, earthworm castings can provide performance above and beyond that of artificial commercial fertilizers and even many natural fertilizers. At the same time, it is completely safe to all plants, animals, and people in any concentration. In fact, when used in greater concentration been produced in nature, it has been found the worm casting have great benefits, including you get vigorous plant growth, fibrous root stimulation, improves soil aeration, and it provides beneficial control over plant pathogens and harmful root-eating nematodes. They found that it helps defend against damping off and other things. One of the natural things in the worm castings help plant growth. It would be a great addition to your seed starting mix for unbelievable growth. I'm going to show you in a picture here. These are some tiny Tim tomato plants, okay, that I had started in little net pots, and they were growing great. I had left them in there a little too long. They needed to be transplanted. They're getting a little peaked. I put them in just a standard commercial potting mix, and they were doing okay, but they weren't really looking that great. So I had some worm castings because I got into started raising worms again, and I took half the worm castings. I could even use a little lesser concentration. I used half worm casting, half peat moss, and mixed it together. And I transplanted these tiny Tim tomato plants into this. Put them in my potball garden, which a lot of you have probably seen. And 5 days later, look at these pictures, I'm telling you, absolutely the most vibrant, healthy green. These plants look like they're ready to jump right out of the pot. I have never experienced a transformation in 5 days like that, at least in all the time I've been gardening. Unbelievable. I mean, the proof is right there. So I can see the results, how a natural product has just unbelievably changed. So it's just one of the reasons you want to really seriously consider doing some compost and vermiculture, doing this because of that. Not just because you can raise worms to make compost. Maybe you want to fish. Maybe you're a fisherman. You want to. The price of bait is extremely high. These are things to consider. So I'll get into different kinds of worms that you can use for this. But right now, I just want to really explain the benefits, and I think I have quite a bit of the worm castings or worm vermicompost itself is a phenomenal. Whether you're going to use it just to dress plants, whether you're going to use it mixed and make your own potting mix, whether you're going to use it and make a worm tea, which is unbelievable, like a compost tea. But even the thing about the worm compost is these worms have broken down the plants and nutrients to such a level that the plants can have available. They can take it up right away. They don't have to, whereas you put cow manure or horse manure, things like that. Other different bacteria and stuff must work on that and break it down to make it accessible to the plant. The worms have already done that for you. They already have the worm castings or vermicompost in a condition that readily. This is why I've seen the dramatic results in 5 days, because there was nothing left to be done. The worms had done it all. That is one of the key elements of the vermicompost. You know, now that I've explained to you some of the phenomenal benefits of vermicompost or worm castings, in this next video, I want to be able to explain to you on your choice. Okay, you've decided I want to raise worms. I need to decide which kinds of worms to raise. I realize this vermicompost would be phenomenal for many applications in my garden. And what do I go about doing it? How do I go about doing it? How do I set up, what do I order, what kinds of worms? That's what I'll discuss in this next one. Next video is what kinds of worms to choose. Is there a difference? Do I want to raise ones that just compost? Do I want to raise ones that compost and also have a benefit that I could use as fishing bait? I could sell even. Could start a little family hobby. The kids could get involved. You could raise some worms, sell locally. Many different aspects of it. How do I set up a basic bin? How do I get started? That's what I will cover in this next video. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe to my channel, and I'm going to be doing a whole series on this stuff. Try to take the mystery out of all this, make it simple and forward for you. This is Larry up from Braden, Minnesota. Ciao.
For our viewers back at home, that is it from us today. We've been talking about vermiculture and what vermiculture is. Until next time, goodbye.